what we believe is that, like, as a Jewish Christian, I like kind of try to make sure to stick to the Torah and the Tanakh and how it does like connect those things. But ultimately, I think the thing that Judaism modern day like kind of fails to understand is like, yeah, like you said, it's a human condition, but like where, like, how did our human condition come about, and like is there a way to fix it? And I think that's the thing that must, like, obviously we can have the ability to choose to follow God's commands even since the old times with Moses and everything like that, but it's solving the problem of sin in general, like solving
Right. So we
that
see.
separation from
Okay.
God.
So we don't believe that there's a problem from our perspective, right? And it doesn't bother me that you're a Christian, by the way. If you
Oh,
want to
sure.
believe that Jesus died for your sins, but you still feel bound to keep commandments because God commanded you to keep commandments, I would have no issue with it, right? You know, it's your devotional belief. If you wanted to create your own Christian heaven and say like, okay, only the believers in the Messiah could come into my heaven, like just like Lubavitch could say that I don't know, well, there's going to be some Fabregan in the sky, you know, for the followers of of the Lubavitch Rebbe. That's your right. You know why? Because the Bible never speaks of heaven. Right? So you can create your own heaven and you can exclude people from your party as much as you want. The problem is when you start saying that God no longer validates you, that God now has this extra criteria, and we're the ones who have the final interpretation. You know, Jews do that towards Christians, by the way, and it bothers me,
Oh, sure.
right? Because I
I know.
think that being the notion is not a Torah, but the notion of the Messiah is not a Torah concept that's explicit. Who am I to exclude you for believing Jesus is the Messiah? I mean, how God views their Rebbe. That's fine. It's not going to change how you keep one law. That's it. You know, so just come to Torah observance, right? Both written law and the rulings of the sages that we consider oral law. And that's it. You know, and we should be able to live in peace. However, Christians don't offer us that courtesy because you believe, right, that not only will we not enter heaven, we're actually going to be tormented by a lake of fire, right? So it seems like, you know, I mean, Christianity is more of the problem philosophically than Judaism is here.
Well, again, like, I'm just to say, like, yeah, like any Christian that would try to, you know, hate on Jews is obviously not following their Jewish Messiah. But like the point is I'm getting at is like I don't understand why it's not a problem for, like, where did sin come from? Like
We don't know.
in
We don't know
well that
ultimately.
well that isn't that what that's literally what like the first like 3 chapters of Bereshit are about, like, when the
No,
serpent
in terms
tempts
of there's a
Eve.
solution for sin, we don't know. And I think this goes back to the verse that the secret things are for God. Let's not waste our time worrying about this stuff. We have our hands full trying to keep the Torah, trying to be decent people and fighting actual evil. Right?
Well, yeah, but
I mean,
like
some
again,
people become
Bereshit is
too
part of the
heavenly good that
Torah
they're no
though.
earthly good. You know, and it sounds like a form of asceticism. I mean, trying to go up in a mountain and retire into piety. We have real problems we have to deal with on earth. And the Torah has a solution for those problems. Individual moral training. In terms of believing in fairy tales, essentially, in things that we can't see and things we can't touch, right? I mean, apart from what the Torah literally says, it's kind of a waste of our time.
Well, then why did God give us Bereshit then? Because that's, I mean, like the first like couple chapters, because like he literally lays out, hey, Adam and Eve, the serpent, the fall, Cain and Abel, like it's with Moses then.
So
If we're just gonna talk about Torah,
it sounds like you know the 5 books of Moses pretty well. Where in the five
I'd
books of
like to think so.
Moses does it say that God gave us the narrative in the book of Genesis?
Where does it say like
Yeah.
it gave us? Well, I mean, it says that he gave Moses
Moses, the law on Mount Sinai, right?
the law.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the book of Genesis part of the law?
Well, we would say the Torah. When we say the Torah, we're usually talking about the first 5 books of the
Today,
Tanakh.
today, right? I mean, nowhere in the Torah does it say that Moses received 5 books on Mount Sinai. So even
Okay, sure.
from a Torah perspective, Moses only received commandments from God. Commandments. Now, in faith, I could believe that Moses wrote this, based off of legend. But for you to build your religion not on the actual commandments you received from God, but because of narrative, right? Narrative, right? God never said that he's going to punish you for not believing narrative. He says he's going to punish you for violating the Torah, the do's and don'ts, the positive commandments and the negative commandments. All right.
So why is the first couple chapters of Bereshit in there then? Like if it's not like important,
No, the book of
that's
Genesis is there to give you context. because it leads up to Mount Sinai. That's what I think Genesis chapter 3 is prophesying. Genesis
Yeah,
chapter
and so
3
that's what I'm
is
saying, is that
prophesying
like
Mount
it's
Sinai. Why? Because man's fall in the garden was his attempt to be ethical without God. And this is
yeah,
why
I agree.
Judaism traditionally viewed the serpent as our evil inclination, telling us that we don't need God to be ethical. So God says that a time is going to come where I'm going to remake the bridge between man and God. The next time your evil inclination rises up to tell you that you don't need God, you'll be able to crush its head now because I'm going to give you the Torah.
But that's not what it
Right?
says. It says that a seed, like literally an
Yeah.
offspring will come, like a person will come.
Refer to humans in general. Okay. I mean, just look at a Bible video called Seed of the Woman on YouTube. This doesn't mean someone who's born from a virgin. It doesn't mean a specific man. It means humans in general, right? If it's all humanity that fell via Adam, it's all humanity that's going to be restored when we receive the Torah. Or then Mount Sinai really appeared out of nowhere. If Genesis chapter 3 is not pointing to that seminal moment in Judaism, that God gave us a Torah. Now we can crush our evil inclination. Next time it tells us we could be ethical without God. This is how I read it. Of course, no one is going to know definitively what Genesis chapter 3 is really talking about. And what we can do is build a doctrine around it. And that's what Christianity did.
Well, I mean, I would argue that like a lot of or like early rabbis would have considered this to be maybe like they would have different ideas about it, but they would
Yeah, but they wouldn't
understand that
judge
this is a
anyone who disagreed with them. That's the thing. See, Christianity has a little bit of audacity to say, if you don't accept our interpretation, now you're going to hell. In Judaism, we have this notion of optional belief. There's many books that are optional in Judaism, right? Now, what's not optional is the Torah and the oral Torah that we believe is the rulings of the Sanhedrin. Okay, but for some reason, you believe that if a church has a certain interpretation of a verse, for some reason, God is behind this church, and anyone who disagrees with this interpretation, not what it literally says, is enough to be cast out from the presence of God, whether that's hell or not entering heaven.
well,
That's
now you're
it.
getting into the whole denominational thing, and I